In this tutorial, we'll look at setting up the arm IK on our stand model. We don't have to do that. We can animate this with the bones if we want to. It's not a problem. You might just find with an IK it will help to pose it a bit more quickly. It'll also allow you, if you want to have it so the arms can act independently of the body. So say he was doing press-ups or something like that, you could fix the hands to the floor and then animate his body and the hands would stay where they were, kind of thing, a bit like pinning the feet to the floor. So to create the IK for the arms, it's very similar to how we did the legs. We go to the rigging shelf, IK, create a IK handle tool, and we're going to do it from the top of the shoulder to the wrist, like so. So that instantly means we've got control of the arm, like so. And you can see the wrist rotates through, just like the foot was doing. So we want another IK constraining the hand. So we'll click on the Create IK Handle tool, and we'll go from there to any one of these joints. I'll just go to this middle joint here, and then I'm going to parent that IK handle to that IK handle. So now when we move this, look, we can then rotate that, and we've got control over the wrist as well, like so. Okay, so that's the first part of it done. We'll then create a handle controller for our hand. So we go to the curved surfaces and we'll create a circle controller. And again, you can spend ages making this a nice shape. I'm not going to do that in this tutorial. I will just quickly get this into the right position. So I want to snap the object to here, or its pivot. I'm going to snap it to here like so. And then if I go into component mode, it will leave its pivot in the correct place. So I can just move all its components over here. And then I could spend a bit of time shaping this and so on. But I'm kind of happy with this kind of shape. It's okay. Oh no, I've started sculpting it now. So something like that is absolutely fine. So it's just exists nicely outside the hand, so it's easy enough to select, like so. Okay, once you're happy with that, double check that pivot is in the right place. Yep, you can see that's right on the wrist bone. We need to go to the poly modeling shelf and we'll delete history and freeze its transformations just to zero all of that. The next thing we're going to do, we'll copy this over so we've got it for the other side as well. We need to make the IK chain for those as well. So I'll just do Control D to duplicate. I'll move it over here and I'll inverse it like I did with the foot one. So -1 on the scale, turns it inside out, and we'll snap that to that wrist joint. So holding the V key down and drag that over there like so. And again, freeze its transformations, delete any history. There shouldn't be any history on it, and that's absolutely fine. Obviously, you can name these things as you go along. It's always a good idea. So, like all these foot controllers, I've not named them. So, I'd be calling that left foot, left knee controller, stuff like that. So it just makes it a lot easier to understand what these things are when you're selecting them. We'll then set up the IK for the right arm. So create IK, down from there to there, and pressing the Y key just to repeat the tool. I think from there to there is the way I did it on the other one, and then parent those both together. And then we can parent those to the hand controller, like so. So I'll show you that again more slowly. I pick the topmost IK handle in this small IK handle chain, then hold Shift to pick the hand controller and press P. So now hopefully if I've done that correctly, if I move the hand around, you can see that's got control and rotation of the wrist like so. Okay, and because we froze it all, if you've got it out of position, you can just hold Shift down, select all those, press 0, and it zeroes them back. Don't do it in the scale. The scale needs to be set to 1. And the same goes, let's just double check. Always check everything as you go along. Just make sure it's all working. And again, I can just zero those like so. Now, the next thing is the finger controllers. We could just animate the fingers with the joints. Again, there's not many joints in them, so it might be easier. But I might show you a quick solution with that. One of the ways we could do it was with little circle controllers that are controlling the channels of the we probably just want the the Z and probably the Y. Let's have a look. Is that the Z? And maybe just the Y. So that might be enough for what we need. I don't think we need the X to be controlled as such. It depends on how complex you want the rig to be. I'll do a simple thing for now. I'll show you set driven key with finger controllers. So look, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to modify and add attribute. So I'll call it fingers. And we'll give it a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 30. Let's just say, and we go OK. And we'll do it for the other one as well at some point, but I'm just going to do it on this side for this tutorial. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use set-driven key to pose these. Now this will be a bit limited. We're not going to be able to get a lot of poses out of this. It will just be sort of open hand, closed hand kind of thing, just for simple animation. So a more elaborate kind of set of controls might be better for the long run if you're doing a lot of animation with a character. But this is just a nice quick way of showing you set-driven key and how to sort of set it up like this. So what we need to do is set-driven key lives in the animation menu. It's in key and set-driven key set here. It also lives on this shelf here. It's this little chain thing here. If I click on that on the rigging shelf, it comes up with this little box here. It's a little bit like the connection editor in that you have like an output and an input. It's called driver and driven. But you can actually key the explicit positions, so you've got a little bit more control. It's actually creating essentially localized animation. So this fingers channel is going to be like your time slider. This will control the keys on the bones of the finger. So we load that up first. We load that into the driver, so load driver, and look, there's all the channels to do with that nerve circle. So we'll highlight fingers, and then we've got to pick all these bones. So let's just press Q to turn off the rotate. Let's pick that one, that one, that one. Oops. You can see that I'm accidentally picking the IK handle, so I've got to be careful picking these. I got a feeling that I've picked the IK handle again. I'm going to put those on a shelf so I don't accidentally do that. So I'll just put them on a temporary shelf for now. Just makes selection a bit easier. So we just pick all of these like so, and we'll load the driven objects. So we've got all those joints. 8 joints in total. I haven't picked the end joints, so there should be 8 things there. And then I highlight all of those holding shift, and I want them this finger controller to control the rotation X, Y, Z. Okay, and I just keep this window open now, and then I can pose and key things. So what we might say is that whilst the fingers is in that 0 position, so like so, we might want this in a kind of more open, wide pose. So let's just pose this very quickly, something like this maybe. And just pose these fingers very quickly, using the up down arrow just to go up and down the chain, and the thumb. So this is like a wide open palm kind of pose, like so. Let's just get that finger up a little bit. And we'll key that position. So you do it on the key icon here, key that position. We then want to change this to 30, so it's like you're moving your time slider along, and then you repose. So let's pose it into like a clenched fist. Again, it's a Velo poly model, so it's only limited what we can do. So we'll just approximate what we want, get it as near as we can. And let's have a look. So you've got a bit more control over this than in the connection editor, which just controls like one channel. Well, you can have the connection editor to control a few channels, but it links the numbers up exactly the same, whereas this allows me to actually just, key poses. And then we fold the thumb down and across. That's not too bad. That would do just for this demo. And we go back and we key that again. Okay, and that should mean now that if we close this window down, we bring this up, look, we've got fingers controller here, and we can middle drag left and right, and that opens and closes the hand. You can see it's a bit limited with the poses, but you can actually put more keys in. So if you wanted to, you could have like another key at 10, you could repose this a little bit. So if I bring up the set-driven key again, I shouldn't have closed it down. So if I bring that up again, just load driver, finger, and quickly select all these again. I can add middle frames. I should have kept that open. I should put them all load driven, all of these again. So this is a good refresher. So now if I set like the fingers to, let's say, frame 10. And let's say I'm not happy with that pose, I could just say, let's just bring the fingers in a bit. So this will be a more sort of relaxed middle pose. Something like this maybe, then we can key that. Okay, and then if we have a look at how it progresses, so we've now got from the wide to the 10 pose, and then into the fist. And if there's ever a problem, like, you know, the index finger intersects the thumb, then again, you could go to like frame 20. So I'm just putting whole numbers in, it just makes it easier. And I could just pose this slightly out like this, so you don't get that kind of intersection going on. Key that again, and I will close that window down there. And you can see you're actually putting, you know, animation, but localized animation on these joints. So that's quite good. That's just a nice, quick, easy puppet control. But like I said, be cautious because it won't give you all the posing that you can do with the individual bones. So you can set up a different system where you have like a little nerved circle above each finger that controls maybe the orientation of each joint, or connected to the channel of each joint, or the set-driven key. It's totally up to you. And then you'd parent it to the hand controller. And so on. The last thing we do, moving on from the fingers controller, so I've shown you set-driven key, which is quite a useful tool. Doesn't involve any kind of scripting, which is what we're trying to avoid with this rig at the moment. The last thing we need to do is have an elbow pole vector, because the elbow will freak out and do horrible things at times. And you need to pose the elbow. When you're posing your character, the elbow is quite an important thing. You know, at the moment you can see it moves about a heck of a lot. We want to be able to control that kind of movement, have more control over it. So we will create another circle controller. We'll make a star shape like the one for the feet, for the legs, sorry. So I'll just pick those controllers again, scale them in. Okay, so rotate it round towards the camera, 90 odd degrees or minus 90 or whatever, like so. And I'll snap it to the elbow. So holding the V key, let's drag it over here until we can drag it into the elbow. Let's just zoom in on that. I think, oh no, you can see it's snapped to a vertex. That's good. We'll make a duplicate of that, Control D, copy that over here, dragging from the middle again, so it's dragging in all directions. That's good, and we will move those back, like so. Okay, so that's the way the elbows want to point. We will then do the normal thing of deleting history and freezing transforms, and we will then set up the pole vector constraints. Now you can see I created that temporary shelf just to hide those IK away, so I need to undo that. So I'll just pick that IK handle there. It's the one that is constraining those two joints there, because it's got the twist control over that one there, and constrain pole vector. And we'll do the same for that one, constraining object first, and that one there, and constrain pole vector. So now the elbows will just be a lot more stable. So look, when we move his wrist around, look, his elbow's not flipping about, and we've got control over the elbow with this now, so we can change the pose. So there's two objects to pose the arms, which is not too complicated at all. The last thing we do with this rig is we just set up some spine controls, because at the moment we haven't parented these. At the moment, if he walks, he leaves his arms behind, which is fine. If you're doing animation where he is like leaning against walls and you want the hands to fix to things, that's absolutely fine. But you might want it where you want the arms to follow where the body goes. If you're doing walk cycles, running cycles, all that kind of stuff, you don't want to always be having the arms catch up with the character. Now, normally what you use is, there is something called IK blend. So if I pick this IK, there's IK blend, and that turns the IK on and off, and you can set up a rig so you'd have like two objects that are controlling the arms, and you can swap between the two. So you can actually animate the arms with the IK, or you can animate the arms with what's called the FK, which is the joint rotations. So it allows you to have the arms sort of the hands be pinned or not be pinned, and follow the rest of the skeleton around. What I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this simple. We can change the rig on a shot by shot basis. So suddenly if our character is running along, we can have these controllers here parented to a chest controller, so they will follow everywhere the upper body goes. If in the next shot he's down doing 20 press-ups, we can just change the rig. We can unparent that, make sure there's no animation on it before you unparent it. But in a fresh shot, you can remove animation and alter your rig for that specific shot. So it's not over important to have the rig able to do everything. You can change it on a shot by shot basis. So what we do now, we'll set up some chest controllers and stuff like that, and a universal controller that we can scale our whole character with, and so on. I'm going to hide these IK away. I'll pick that one and that one, and I'll pick these arm controllers as well. Let me just make sure I can pick them. Struggling to pick that. Okay, let's add those to the leg bits. Oh, I'll call it leg bits, but I'm going to add those to that. No, I'll add it to this one here. Add selected objects. Let's template those, and now I should better pick the arm joints. There you go. It kept picking the IK over there, and we're right-click and add selected objects. So look. So that means that look, now if I pick that, the only thing I can select is that hand controller. So we'll create some spine controllers now. How shall I do this? Let's have a look. We can create a circle controller for the waist. Make it a bit bigger, and we'll snap that to his waist. Zoom in so we get that in the right position. That's cool. That will do. I'm not going to change the shape of that. That's absolutely fine. And yeah, we'll freeze its transforms and so on. So that's created that one. We're going to create a duplicate of that for his chest controller. Move that up, snap it into the right place, like that. Yeah, that's fine. We'll make one for the neck. I mean, he's only got limited bones, so we can make all these controllers. Again, on a more advanced rig, you might create what's called a spline IK, which is quite good for controlling the sort of the spine of your character. You can sort of flex it about and stuff. But it's for this simple character, what we're doing at the moment is all absolutely fine. And we'll make one more for his head controller. We can maybe have that at the top, so it's nice and easy to put like a little halo for him. We need to move the pivot of that one because it's obviously quite a long way away from the actual object. So I'm going to just drag that down to the actual head joint like so. And let's just check they're all in the right position. They're all good. Yep, and I can't remember how many of those I froze transformations for, so I'm going to pick all of them. Like you can see, they've got scale figures in there and stuff. So let's freeze all of those, delete any history of them, and then I'm going to parent them together. So this one needs to be parented to that one, press P. That one now needs to be parented to that one, press P, and that one to that one, press P. So this is the topmost one. If we move that, you can see all the others follow. So we're creating almost like a separate rig, and these are just selection handle kind of things. And then we can have them driving the joints and so on. So constraining object first. I'm going to set up, I think, orientate constraints for most of these and a parent constraint for this one. Because these are all going to just use rotations. This one is going to use rotations and transformations to move the hips about. So we want a parent constraint for this. So we'll pick that, and we'll pick that joint there. We go to constraint. We're going to tear this menu off so we can keep it over here. And we go to parent constraint options. And I think by default it has maintain offset. It just means that the pivots can be different for the two objects that have been constrained. If you don't have that, if you have that turned off, you'll sometimes see that the object that's being constrained will switch orientation to match the parent object. So yeah, just be aware of that. So we'll go apply, and hopefully if we move that back, yep, that's good. So now we want to set up an orient constraint for that. So we'll pick that, and we'll pick that, and I'll show you what happens actually if we don't do the maintain offset. So I'll put that on. Look, I haven't got maintain offset. Let's go apply. You can see that this is twisting around to match the pivot of that circle, so it sort of screws up a bit. So let's undo that, turn maintain offset on and apply, and it should be all good now. That's good. So that's got control over that. So pick constraining object first, and that one, apply, and finally the head, and that one, and apply. That hopefully is an okay kind of setup for the body. Let's have a look. They're just nice sort of handles that are easy to select and pose. Isn't that right, Stan? Yes. Still got his dodgy chin. Right, okay, so that's all good. We can now, what's good about this is we can now parent these things to this chest control. So if we do want like his arms to follow everywhere his body goes, for this kind of the animation we're doing, we can pick these and this and this and this, and we parent them all to this. So now his arms move about with that, and I think that's an okay kind of setup. Like I said, with a more advanced rig, you'll get a sort of IK blend setup, so you can swap between the two things. The last thing we need is a big universal controller. So say we load this into a scene and he's way too big or way too small, we want to be able to scale him. So I'll create a circle, make it nice and big, like so. This is important again, delete its history and freeze its transformations. With rigging, it's always good to make sure everything's frozen. Now we want to parent lots of bits and pieces to this. This is important. It's a bit of trial and error sometimes. Well, I kind of know what I've got to do, so I've got to parent those two to it, and that. So look, now everything moves about. But if I try and scale it, it's going to screw up. Look, hey, not so good. We've got to parent the actual skeleton rig to this as well, not the geometry, because the paint weights. It means that because it's got the skin weights on it, sorry, the joints will control the scaling of the actual body and stuff like that. But we've got to parent the skeleton to this circle. So let's just have a look in our hypergraph hierarchy. So this is our control rig here with that circle at the top. Again, I've been very lazy and not named anything. And this is our joint hierarchy. So look, if I parent that to that, like so, it should work fine now. So the nerve circle is at the top of the hierarchy, not the geometry. We don't add the geometry. Let's see. There we go. We can scale that. You can actually animate this and scale your animation through this, but you don't want to animate this thing. This is a kind of positional rotation. So say your animation starts over here, we can move him over there, we can rotate him around, we can scale him down, and then you start your animation. I wouldn't animate this thing. It's kind of like a universal controller to move things about with. Okay, and likewise you can put animation on him, you know, so I could have him bobbing up and down like this all day long. And if I then scale this, the animation will still work. Okay, so he's absolutely tiny and he still bobs up and down like that. So it's a nice, easy setup. And there's lots of variations on these kind of rigs, and you can make it a lot more advanced than this and have a lot more control over aspects of it. But this kind of works for now.